Oh boy. Okay, here we go. Obligatory wake up, honey. New UEDAIP just dropped. Nekron has released Overmind, the vanilla Zerg campaign, and these are like remixed veteran-style versions of the original maps. I have played the 3 Brood War campaigns already because those are what he made first, and more recently I played through Rebel Yell, which were these 12 Terran missions of the original Terran campaign. These are a lot of fun, but also pretty difficult. Now, these are not just a little bit harder versions of the original maps. These are a lot harder versions of the original maps that have been redesigned pretty much entirely to be a lot more rewarding, fairly clever, introduce different mechanics. So while many things are the same, namely the story, and in many cases the layouts of the maps are kind of the same, they're going to play in vastly different ways, even starting here from some of the earliest maps, I believe. Sometimes the first couple maps might be more similar than they are different, but the deeper you get into each campaign, you're going to see pretty significant changes. Now, we've, I think, all at least played or watched the original game, so we can skip the map descriptions, we can skip the briefings, we can skip in-game dialogue unless there's anything new that Nekron may have added with custom voice acting, but I think in these vanilla campaigns that is very rare. But he does have little design blurbs on the UEDAIP Discord that I'd like to read before getting started. So for Among the Ruins, it says, tug of war where the player has to rely on Zerg mobility to tip the scales over. Short, small map. Okay, let's get going, and maybe we can use this first map to get our bearings on what's new with the Zerg race. There are changes to these vanilla factions that are pretty significant, along with some quality of life changes as well. No drones, so let's get started. First thing I could say, Smart Rally is great. You can just right-click Mineral Patches, and you'll auto-rally, or auto-mine, I should say, which is very nice. So there's really nothing else to do here at the start, I guess, but I noticed that we're just completely surrounded by the Garm Brood, which is pretty cool. Looks like, and we just got some Zerglings here. Interesting. Okay, well, all I'm going to do here is just go ahead and make workers, because that's all there is to do, and then we'll make our Overlord. But when we say that these are harder, it's not just because the enemy sends huge attacks at you, and they do send huge attacks at you. But the main difference is that the AI scripts, you know, basically the code in the back that tells the AI what to do, how to function, has been meticulously and manually adjusted and rewritten completely by Nekron and other contributors to make them act in very specific ways. And usually those ways are to make them just a lot more competent, being much more difficult opponents. They're also usually actually constrained by money, which is something that is not common in most real-time strategy titles. You know, whether that's important or not, it depends. You know, you can see positives and negatives. If the enemy is also reliant on resources, it means that they're going to take longer to kind of get off the ground to start attacking you. Pretty large attack here right at the beginning. Let's get in here and help our sunken colonies. I think we're going to want to make some of our own colonies here to assist in defending this side. Major faction change for the Terran are that Marines are worse. They shoot slower and do 1 less damage, but they're cheaper and they build a lot faster. I realize that I do not have a spawning pool, so I can't actually make sunken colonies. So while that first attack looked huge, if it's just Marines, it dies very, very fast and is not going to do that much damage. Only when you're coupling Marines with other units are they going to be particularly effective. Anyway, let's go ahead and save up and get our spawning pool. 250. Evo Chamber's the same cost. Creep colonies are 125, and I think that's because you can build them off of creep now, which is very, very strong. So you can kind of creep with... Okay, well, creep with creep colonies. Would you look at that? I can see now what it means by tug of war. So as you can see already, just a few like minor changes with how this stuff works. How much is a hatchery? 400? That's like a war crime. That's terrible. Yeah, let's go ahead and get some more sunken colonies, I guess. But yeah, being able to build creep colonies ahead of your stuff and then turn them immediately into sunken and spore colonies is really cool. You can also pay money to switch stuff between sunkens and spores. I hate this. I'm just going to go around the fire bats and kill the Goliaths. Okay, Okay, at least Zaz is doing a pretty good job at sort of defending himself. So fire bats are a little bit better in that they shoot faster. Something about like their attack cooldown has been reduced, which effectively results in them shooting faster and therefore doing more damage. They're way better against Zerglings and Zealots and stuff like that. Just made another round of drones. Again, just trying to keep an eye on the major differences. Narratively, I like the idea here where 25. So it's 125 to build the colony and then 25 to just turn it into something else. It's going to get our Evo chamber because those upgrades are going to take a while. And let's go ahead and just toss 3 drones immediately on here. Yeah, he's doing a good job here defending. What's this? Sunken colonies regenerated double the rate of other Zerg buildings. You'll love to see that. Hydras in general are also much better. Hydras just have more survivability. I think, do they normally do 12 damage? I think nothing about their attack has been changed, but they're just way beefier. I'm curious to see how much they're going to cost, but I think they're going to be even more so our bread and butter. Which, I mean, Hydras are normally your core unit is vanilla Zerg, but even more so now they're going to be that much more important. We're floating some money. You know what, actually, let's get a second hatchery. Now, the auto-rally of Zerg might be a bit of a pain because you're going to have to change your auto-rally from... If you build drones, you got to rally to a mineral. If you're building any army units, you got to rally somewhere else. There's not like a separate econ rally... There's not like a separate econ rally, army rally, but maybe that's asking a little too much. I'm not so sure. Full disclosure, I did actually start playing this mission once already, and it seemed like all the enemy attacks, like all of them, hit the top first, and it actually broke through Zaz's defenses, and then all of his drones just stopped mining. So it wasn't really a great start, I think, unfortunately, so I chose to not keep that footage. But I'm trying to think what other faction type stuff. Oh, so you probably already saw all the stuff costs more. Everything costs more here. Not units, but buildings. All the buildings cost more. For creep colonies, the reason is obvious. It's because it's too good to be able to build them off creep and creep with the creep colonies, creep colony creep, whatever you want to say. Dude, you could just walk over here and harass the drones. Look at that. Get him, Zerglings. Hey, if I'm able to just sort of sit back and build my stuff, that's fine with me. This is a rarity for UEDAIP. Also, our overlords already start with speed, which is nice. I'd like to start getting some Hydras out. Okay, 125.35, so it's only a little extra gas, but Hydras are normally 75.25, so they are more minerals, and they cost 1.5 supply instead of just 1. So that difference is definitely pronounced to me. You know what? They're making a decent push. Why don't we come over here and any enemy production we can hit, the better. And let's go ahead and just focus on some Hydras for now. I'll get another Overlord here soon. Did all of my units die? I think, did every single one die that I sent over there? Wasn't watching. That's what happens. But now that our core unit, the Hydralisk, costs more, we can't just, spam out a ton of them and then ignore them. We actually have to pay attention to what they all are doing. But because these factions all function a little differently, it does change the typical approach to how you play them. So, and how you play against them. So I'm intrigued. It took a while to get used to how Terran works. It took me a while, at least, I think, last campaign to get used to it. But like Brood War Terran, you play as the UED, and the UED has its own separate faction, so you should go and check that out. It's totally different in almost every way. Like, none of the units are the same. So that was really cool. Again, I'd encourage you to check it out if you're interested. So this attack seems huge, but again, these Marines by themselves are actually quite bad. They die very, very fast, only 40 HP, so that's a significant difference. Anyway, I'm trying to just get some, like, a significant group of Hydras out. We'll get the Zerglings in here. That's what you're for. Great. Maybe we'll just want to build some more colonies over here, too. So as you can see, for the first mission, it's funny to me how the tutorialized Dagoth and Zaz voice lines were left in, yet, you know, obviously the challenge here has been made significantly higher, so I love the idea of someone who's like, well, I've never played this game before, but my friend told me about this mod for UEDAIP. Maybe I can learn how to play the game playing UEDAIP. And then they come in here and they're like, oh, never used your last drone to build a building. Oh, God, there's 25 Marines attacking me. What is this game? Anyway, this group of Hydras is a lot scarier than it seems, I think, initially, just because, again, Hydras are just that much better, and we can use them to waste these fire bats. I do like how Zaz keeps sending units down to defend me. The fact that he's got this one Sunken alive, and the fact that the Sunkens regenerate that much faster, means that he's going to keep sending units down to try to save his one building. Because that's how the AI typically functions. It's looking at... Oh god, fire bats. It's looking at if you're attacking a building of their faction, or sometimes all that it really requires is they just need to be, like, one of their buildings needs to be able to see your units in range, and then they'll send, like, a predefined defense force against you. Man, it's just funny. Again, it just, my expectations are just feel all messed up, because when you see that amount of Marines, I get a little nervous, but then I think, like, well, honestly, it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. Oh, and what I was talking about earlier, and I sort of got off track, but buildings have more HP, but they cost more. Also, they spawn units when they're destroyed. I don't think that's a great compensation for having for costing more. That's just like a personal opinion of mine, though. I think, like, if my structures are being destroyed and my infrastructure is being gutted, like, I don't need the compensation of, like, oh, here's a free Goliath because your factory was destroyed. You know, but you effectively prepaid for that Goliath, but you can only use it when the structure's been destroyed. Just does not really strike me as how I'd want to spend my money if I was given the option to do it. So really, I only look at it as, okay, buildings have more survivability. Ignore the fact that they spawn an extra unit, because the utility of that is virtually nothing to me. So, like, I could come up here and build creep colonies and stuff, but, like, I can't really afford that, so let's just focus on making more Hydras, which will probably be able to sweep the map for us. And we could wait for maybe Zaz to go ahead and push out here one final time, and we'll go from there. I don't really need much more gas. I haven't seen those Wraiths cloak, so we're fine with that. I don't... Do bunkers? I think bunkers have more survivability. I don't remember if bunkers cost more or not, though. Like, obviously, the Evo Chamber doesn't cost more, so I presume that it doesn't actually have more survivability. Who knows, man? But in a way, I think the Zergling is unchanged, but interestingly enough, if you kind of don't think about the Zergling per se, the Terran Barracks T1 and the Zerg Spawning Pool Hydra Den tech Tier 1 are sort of flipped in how they're used. Again, because Marines are cheaper and build really fast, whereas Hydralisks are more expensive and cost more supply. Which, again, changes things quite drastically. So it's really the Marine and the Hydralisk change is kind of what drives that. Okay, let's get in there and see if we can get on top of that tank and then follow up with everyone else. I don't know if these Wraiths are going to cloak, so we'll just bring these Overlords with us. They did cloak, so I'm glad I brought them. And we're in. And normally, again, as Zerg, what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and just build Zerglings and rally them up here to help clean this stuff up. But I'm not sure if that's how we want to play in the future. Now I think we want to have, like, groups of hotkeyed Hydralisks that we actually have to pay attention to and ensure that we don't lose them all because they're, you know, a lot more valuable. Look, see, they got a Marine for that barracks. But the fact that we destroyed the barracks... You know, like, oh, you know, is that one Marine really going to turn the tide? I don't know. There's a lot of things I could say about how I feel about the building cost changes. I guess, in a way, though, it does affect the AI equally in the sense that they're reliant on money as well. So if we actually kill all their SCVs, then they can only work off of the bank that they have. They're not given, like, unlimited money to just keep working with. So that's something that we can... I've never really found a great way to cleverly use that in, like, a sneaky way, but more so... Nice, Zaz sending in mutas. But more so, how I've used it in the past is if you get into an enemy base and you can do, like, lasting damage to it, if you can kill their workers in their town hall in, like, a swift attack, then you're going to put them out of commission either completely or at least, like, you know, most of the way, such to the point that they can't really rebuild. Which I think that kind of stuff makes a really big difference. Whereas previously, like, if you leave production structures alive, they can just keep building out of them infinitely. Alright, let's get up here, and it actually looks like Zaz busted through a lot of this stuff up here, too. I don't know if we could have actually destroyed this area easier and taken this base, but now we've got enough money that we're fine. But yeah, those early attacks were nothing to sneeze at. But yeah, I wanted to at least report the bug where all the early Terran attacks hit Zaz, and then his drones went idle and didn't start remining, and then he just stopped building stuff, unfortunately. But that's kind of the risk you take when you start messing with the scripts, and also you make all the AIs dependent on money, and they don't have a bank at all to work with as well. So you kind of make it's kind of like taping strings in a way, where if something goes wrong and, like, the AI wants to build something but doesn't have the money to do it, it might just shut down completely. It depends. Things can fall apart, or maybe they'll surprise you and work just fine. It's hard to say. Okay, well, that's the first mission. I honestly think that this first map of the Zerg campaign here is a great primer for what you can expect. Notably, like I said, like, the terrain was the same. It's still the same briefing, but the map may as well have just been a totally different experience in almost every way. All right, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.